You didn't originate it. It was already a practice, you say, before you even got down there. Why are you taking all the heat?
Oh, we know, Laura. I think we know. I think we know, Laura. That's what you call one of them rhetorical questions. Hey, shout out to all of our new subscribers and members here on the channel. My name is Reese Waters, and this is Who Raised Y'all, where we highlight those unique individuals going above and beyond to make our society worse. You know, the kinds of people you'll see asking to speak to the manager at the pearly gates.
And they're calling the species Borg Genesis. It's not even a human anymore. It's called Borg Genesis.
What? It's not even human?
The people who took the vaccine, they're not considered human anymore.
Wait, the people who got the vaccine are no longer human?
No, and they're actually owned. They're enslaved by Pfizer or Moderna, whoever they took the shot from.
Now, this was originally supposed to be a street politics, but we're gonna go some places today. MAGA, come on down.
Do something crazy, your MAGA people. Do something crazy tonight. Well, we're all in the mood for a funny, and you got us feeling all right.
Now, as you guys are probably well aware, it was a very eventful week for one Jasmine Crockett.
You tell me which white men were dragged out of their homes. You tell me which one of them got dragged all the way across an ocean and told that you are going to go and work. We are going to steal your wives. We are going to rape your wives. That didn't happen. That is oppression.
But one thing I didn't get to highlight were her comments about FEMA and some of the responses to the hurricane.
Over 671,000 households impacted by Hurricane Helene have received over $503 million from FEMA's Serious Needs Program. And over 218,000 households impacted by Hurricane Milton have received over $145 million. Yet and still, we had members on this committee. It looks like we had, there were 82 members that opposed the bill to fund when we knew that this was coming, thanks to NOAA. And 19 of the 26 Republicans on this oversight committee voted against the bill to keep FEMA funded, and 9 are in states that were directly hit. I don't understand why we come in and pretend that we have all these issues with your agency, and I thank you for your service, when you don't want to fund it. You can't complain about these issues, and when we're talking about, you know, the people that got skipped over, maybe or maybe not, ultimately, there was a concern about safety. Now, hopefully we will get the full investigation, but we know that it was Trump that was out there himself. He was putting out disinformation and misinformation to the extent that y'all had to set up an entire website to try to combat it. That was in disservice to all Americans, because when a hurricane hits, it doesn't go into the Democratic areas. It doesn't go to the independents. It doesn't go to the Republicans. It goes to American citizens. It is time for us to decide that we are going to work together and make sure that we can take care of people regardless of the decisions that they decide to make on who they want to put into the White House. And I thank you for your service.
Now, a few things. First of all, the idea of basic accountability and how much that has been lost on Capitol Hill is wild. She just highlighted people voting against funding FEMA and then turning around and holding Biden and his administration accountable for what they see as a lack of appropriate response. Conversely, we have often seen the refrain of members of Congress celebrating funding that they receive from bills that they voted against. And yeah, I'm talking about you, Lauren Boebert. No, put a sheet over her. Yeah, don't nobody need to see that. Second of all, a lot of this is coming out as a result of allegations of them intentionally skipping houses that had Trump paraphernalia. People that were openly MAGA are accusing FEMA of not providing them aid. Now, let me first say that withholding resources from people based on their political beliefs, I find to be abhorrent. Now, however you feel that should be adjudicated when an individual does it, how do you think it should be handled when an elected official does it? An individual doing it on the ground is one thing, and it's bad. An individual doing it from the ivory tower, withholding federal funds based on the politics of the people that are on the ground, or even more sad and low, his personal relationships. How do you think that should be handled? And while you ponder that, how do you think it should be handled when you intentionally pump out information which presents people with a certain political leaning, your people, from getting the help that they need? How do you think that should be seen in light of how problematic we view individuals on the ground doing it? Yeah. You know what? I don't want to break your brains. I'll give you something else to look at while you ponder that.
A political storm over the federal response to Hurricane Milton will hit Capitol Hill tomorrow. A House oversight hearing is going to probe allegations that FEMA workers skipped over going to homes with Donald Trump political lawn signs. Now, FEMA claims that a rogue employee told workers in Florida to bypass those homes, and Republicans have cried foul, claiming it was all politically motivated. FEMA fired that woman, Marn'i Washington. They say it was, quote, a clear violation of FEMA's values and principles to help people regardless of their political affiliation. This was reprehensible. Now, Florida even sued Washington and FEMA. Well, now Ms. Washington is firing back, saying that it's common practice for FEMA teams to avoid some places when it's based on hostile interactions.
Now that is interesting. So the stance, the response to the allegation that homes were skipped on the ground with Trump paraphernalia goes along the lines of them trying to avoid any potential conflict. So then you have to ask yourself, was there any reasonable expectation of potential conflict? Did y'all bring a militia? Huh? Did y'all bring a militia? Did FEMA have to retreat in certain places because of reports of armed resistance against the government showing up to give aid? I know, it's crazy. And when you think about the level of delusion, and there have been many instances of this, think about choosing to believe that the government has neglected you, even in the face of the government actually showing up and trying to provide you aid in the middle of a natural disaster. And you're so opposed to them even showing up and so oblivious to the possibility they might be there to help that you threaten them. That's got to be the highest level of delusion. Like it's got to be. Like that's like having kids with Nick Cannon level of delusion. No. That's higher. That's Amber Rose level of delusion.
With me now, former FEMA official Marn'i Washington. Marn'i, thank you so much for joining. I understand this has been very difficult for you. You have received death threats and you don't feel safe.
No, I don't.
Now, where have we seen that before? And something that we also need to not go unmentioned. We've seen a number of instances of this, whether it be Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman, or whether it be the individual that was working at Arlington Cemetery who was afraid to reveal her identity because she feared death threats and things of that nature. The thing about transparency is it can set you free or it can be damning. There would be no reason for you to threaten people unless you were afraid of them saying something that would be damaging to the delusion in your head. So unless you were trying to maintain your fantasy land, there would be no reason for you to fix your fingers and be firing out messages to these people. Your own actions are an indictment of the garbage in your head. And you know it's garbage, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be acting this way, would you? It's kind of like getting accused of stepping out. If you know you didn't, then you could just remain calm and play this out. But if that's not the case, oh, we gonna raise hell.
It's been a tumultuous event and an uphill battle. But what I'd like for the American people to know is before I even deployed to Florida, that this was the work culture there. I was on 2 teams in Florida. And the first team, when I arrived, they were implementing avoidance and de-escalation. And unfortunately, that trend ran with those Trump campaign signs. So before I even had my own crew in Highlands County, this was the practice. And it's verifiable.
When you say, avoidance and de-escalation, you shared the field guidelines with us, which urge workers to remove themselves from a hostile situation if they feel unsafe for any reason and if they feel threatened. Were there reports of hostility in the neighborhoods that you were responding to as a result of the presence of signs or otherwise?
Yes, we've had people verbally express to us that our presence was unwelcome and unwanted. Some people had some tact about it, and some people were not so nice about it.
What? Trumpers being nasty? That's crazy.
She's a crooked person. She's a bad person. Evil. She's an evil, sick, crazy. Bad. Oh, no. It starts with a B, but I won't say it.
All of this information was communicated with my task force lead, which is my direct supervisor. So I did not act on my own volition. Everything we did was out of the focus of safety and making sure our team felt comfortable.
Who gave those orders? You appear to be conveying them, but you weren't the one where they originated. Is that right?
That's correct. All of my orders come from my task force lead, Chad Hershey. His whole mantra this entire deployment was to make sure people felt comfortable and make sure that they felt safe. And that's because we were in what FEMA categorizes political hostile territory.
Now, something I also find fascinating about this. So essentially, you have a debate between people that are ignoring the hostility that existed for FEMA on the ground. They're ignoring the past history that we have with politics coming into play with regards to this from people with much higher levels of responsibility than the FEMA workers on the ground. They'll ignore all of that, right? But we also hear with regards to our law enforcement, especially coming out of 2020, that they didn't feel comfortable doing their jobs. You remember that? Yeah. They didn't feel safe and comfortable doing their jobs based on what they saw as hostility from the people on the ground. And by the way, that hostility was born from the ask that they have their rights respected. That's a whole nother thing. And I could do a whole nother video about the idea that you didn't feel like you could be trusted and challenged to do your job legally, so therefore you decide you're not going to do it. They've gone so far in right-wing circles as to blame the deaths that have resulted from a lack of policing on the people on the ground who demanded that their rights be respected. Okay, so while you are demonizing the FEMA employees for having any hesitance to engage with a group that has been hostile, a group that ignores the past precedent of this kind of behavior from their elected officials, but legitimizing it when it happens from the police or law enforcement agencies who object to the people on the ground, demand that their rights be respected.
Do you know how they define politically hostile territory? Was it a particular campaign that you were feeling that way towards, or was just the idea of the times that you were in at the times of the relief being requested?
Again, before I was even deployed to Florida, there are accounts of Trump supporters being very passionate about their political stance. And unfortunately, that led to them saying they would either do bodily harm to FEMA workers or they would do take threatening actions towards FEMA workers. And that was the trend, not just in Florida, but you'll see that in North Carolina as well and Georgia.
Now, I just want to do the impossible, which is to engage in a thought experiment about the minds of MAGA. To what end? What is the reason why you feel like you need to let your hands go when you see FEMA or threaten worse? What is the... They gonna reorder your house in a way that you didn't approve of? Is that what it is? They gonna use some unapproved products to sanitize your easy chair? Like what is it that you are rebelling against when FEMA shows up to help you after a hurricane? Like, you think it's magnets in the food that they're giving you? Like, I'm honestly trying to figure it out. I mean, are they going to realize that you got illegal cable in the TV that got blown half a neighborhood away? Like, I legitimately, you know what? I said it was an impossible experience. I said it was impossible. I did. I set myself up.
Did that translate to avoiding all homes that had a Trump sign, or were there select neighborhoods that you implemented that trend in or responded that way?
That's an excellent question. It was only selected areas where teammates felt uncomfortable. They did not feel safe and they feared for their safety.
So if this was something that you were following from FEMA's protocol, you didn't invent it, you didn't originate it, it was already a practice, you say, before you even got down there, why are you taking all the heat?
Oh, we know, Laura. I think we know. I think we know, Laura. That's what you call one of them rhetorical questions. You can divide your audience right in half. Those who know and those who don't know. I know.
It is the surge capacity team that leaked that information, and they did it with the correct timing after President Trump took office. So this raised questions of violation of the Hatch Act, which clearly there's not, because we registered Trump supporters. We've given them service as well, just we avoided the areas that were hostile.
Okay, so if you're following what she just said that, first of all, Trump supporters had been registered. So clearly this wasn't like a blanket, we're not helping Trump supporters, which gives credence to them further saying that they were trying to avoid areas that were hostile. But the timing of the release just after the election, that's not suspicious, now, is it? That's not so. These allegations come just after the election. I'm just supposed to ignore that, huh?
Unfortunately, I ended up with double the teammates. We're supposed to only have 5. I ended up with 11 teammates, and half of those teammates proved to be anti-FEMA. They were quite critical of the entire deployment process, while we canvassed Highlands County.
Do you think you're being scapegoated? Because FEMA noted in your dismissal letter that you had no prior disciplinary action, none, but this alleged misconduct totally outweighed your positive record.
So if you're scoring at home, this woman of color with no prior disciplinary action is being held singularly responsible for Trump supporters saying that they didn't get aid specifically because they were Trump supporters while being in areas that FEMA deemed was hostile, an agency that has a pre-existing policy to avoid areas that are hostile. We know that there were militias and threats because they became public as immediately as the storm hit. And we also know that politics comes into play and has come into play with regards to hurricane response before on their side of the aisle, and they will ignore that. That is a whole lot. That would be as hard as trying to convince yourself that every member of the Trump 45 administration that's not in 47 is lying, and it's some big conspiracy amongst people that have no other relation to each other than Trump. Like that would be, that's that degree, that level.
What did that feel like when you read that?
I'm certain I'm being scapegoated because my superior has been demoted in the past for giving the wrong orders. So now that this person is my superior, I've done my best to not only serve him well, but also serve the Highland County well as well. But I'm the scapegoat here because it doesn't make any sense. You have someone with a clean record that comes highly recommended, and then you have someone that's been demoted in the past for egregious acts, yet you retain this person and promote them, but yet fire me and basically leave me out to be scrutinized and lie and tell the American people I was working on my own volition. I don't create policy. FEMA does. I just implement it in the field.
So you mean to tell me your supervisor has been demoted in the past for giving wrong orders, and they are being retained and even promoted while you with a clean record are being held solely responsible? Sounds about white. Yeah, sounds about white. Now, the fact that she has not been asked to testify is also damning. Just as I said earlier, that the aggression that's been shown towards certain whistleblowers, especially those that happen to fall in a certain hue, that is a self-admission of wrong. But not having her be called to testify as these things are being discussed on Capitol Hill when she's the one who's being blamed, like she's being the one who's being held accountable by virtue of her being fired, but apparently you don't actually want to hear from her, that is quite suspicious. That is quite suspicious. Also, the fact that she said, why is it that we don't want to be transparent about the fact that FEMA has this policy of de-escalation or of avoidance? Well, that would be certainly understandable to me. It's something that I'm being asked to accept from our law enforcement agencies. The only thing I could think about is the fact that they don't want MAGA to be confronted with their own behavior. We have reached that point where MAGA can't be confronted with their own, but you don't want to hurt their feelings. You don't want to risk retribution from Trump. Here's the thing. There are some aspects of our society that demand to be immune from political winds and political pressures. The same way that the outrage that I'm hearing from FEMA at the fact that these people might have been skipped is the same outrage that should have been exhibited in the past when federal aid was withheld by a prior administration. And it's the same outrage that we need to see moving forward when we see agencies like this become politicized, because they are. When you get a nominee for Secretary of Defense who lists his number one enemy as woke, we know that the politicization of all of these agencies has been supercharged. So spare me your outrage on what happened with FEMA when you got red hats on top of every government agency in existence right now. Huh? Oh, that? Yeah, that's just a little shout out to one of our members, TP, as well as our mod on the channel, Miss Ra. And also, because I lost money on that game. And that this was part of the bet, was I had to put an Auburn jersey. It's generally in the region that was affected, but yeah, I had to put an Auburn jersey. Also, I mean, we were talking about Nick Cannon and stepping out before, so he fits the theme of all that. So it was the most appropriate jersey. Yeah. He's also had some emergencies, and he did not manage it well. Hey, I hope you guys had a wonderful start to your holiday. Shout out to all of our subscribers and members here on the channel, especially those who submitted possibilities and ideas for merch. You will see the results on my website, reesewaters.com. We got a ton of stuff. There's mugs there. There's t-shirts there, especially my depleted but never defeated t-shirt, which you guys really seem to enjoy. So keep sending in your ideas for possibilities at reesewaters.com. I also want to mention, I was messing around on my phone and I happened to see that YouTube actually tells me who the most active members are on the channel. It's too many of you guys to name, but I wanted to give you guys a special nod, and I'll tip my cap whenever I possibly can. I've been talking to a lot of different people, and I think next year we'll probably have some new projects on the way, some special lives and some special projects specifically for the members. So be on the lookout for that. I can't wait to get started. And by the way, the link to membership is in the description box to all of my videos. So just go to a recent video and you will find the link to membership right there.